Askreddit. What things have you seen / heard of that helicopter moms do? I went to a school where helicopter moms were completely normal. So many stories, but here's a more extreme one. When I was 7, I met my friend Sarah. Despite meeting my parents multiple times, Sarah's mother showed up the day before Sarah was supposed to come over to interview and inspect my parents and their home to make sure it was safe for Sarah to come over, and gave my parents instructions on how to make our house safe for Sarah. She'd also just randomly show up for some playdates and stay the entire time, watching us play in my house. Her mother came to school one day and pulled me out of class to tell me to stop giving Sarah money for the milk vending machine because the hormones in milk will kill her. And do you want to do that to Sarah? We had school from 8:30 to 3:30 and then after school stuff until 5:30, and Sarah would only have lunch and one snack, usually fruit. They also managed her meals by making them up and laying them out in the fridge. Breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner. Cupboards were not to be touched, ever. When we were in high school, age 14 to 17, Sarah wasn't allowed to leave school property for any reason. We used to go out for lunch and had to leave her behind. No cafe in the school. Despite only living about 2 blocks from the school in a really nice area, she'd have to wait until her mother got off work to pick her up, sometimes not until 6 p.m. She couldn't go anywhere by herself, even at 16 to 17. If we went to the mall, her mother would follow us around, saying just pretend I'm your girlfriend. Same with movies. On the rare nights Sarah was allowed to sleep over, her mother would personally visit around 10 to 11 p.m. to check on her. Her mother also had access to all her passwords, from MSN to Hotmail to some sort of dual phone, where her mother would also receive Sarah's incoming cell phone calls. When you phoned Sarah, her mother would listen on the other line. They also found any and all reasons to ground her, so she wasn't allowed to leave the house. Like, she was supposed to clean the kitchen every day from age 10, from washing dishes after their meals to mopping the floor. Once she accidentally left a fork in the washing machine and was grounded for 2 weeks. Sarah ended up drinking heavily during high school, went to university 6 hours away, and has yet to come back. I wish her all the best. Saw a kid, must have been 12 or 13, yelling at his mom in public about how he can wipe his own butt and didn't need her help with that anymore. Her response, "But you can't see it. How do you know it's really clean?" I felt so bad for that kid. You haven't seen anything until you've seen helicopter hockey parents. They don't only hover over their kids, they encourage horrible sportsmanship. A few years ago, when my goalie brother was playing squirt AA, so about age 9 to 10, the opposing team equipped themselves with the age-old strategy of run the goalie. The coaches were in on this. The parents cheered bloodthirstily whenever these little creeps rammed into my brother, and they kept this up more than they attempted to score. My brother had had enough. Poor kid snapped and walloped the next boy who skidded into his crease, the net area, which was totally justifiable by that point. This redneck looking woman and her husband immediately got up, started screeching about their poor precious Joey, and get that goalie out of there, ref. Eventually their whole cheering system was on their feet, and yelling out obscene crap about taking my brother out. To 10-year-olds. They all got escorted out by security. You cannot make this crap up. I work in hours at a large telecommunications company. We usually sit in the conference room and can see/hear the interview candidates while they are waiting in the lobby. This poor guy was probably 19 or 20 and his mother wanted to go into the interview with him. We actually had to ask her to wait outside the lobby because even after being asked to sit down she said it was her right to be in there. WTF. Guy didn't end up getting the job, and she later called and asked where she could send an appeal letter. Wish I had saved that letter. It was intense. Poor guy. I'm 24, and my mother will sometimes take it upon herself to start calling places on my behalf, except without my knowledge or consent. A lot of the time, I end up having to contact the place when I find out and smooth things over. It's humiliating and it makes me look like an idiot. When I was in 2nd grade I had a friend named Joe who had the worst mom of all time, in helicopter mom terms. She was so overprotective that she once tried to sue the junior baseball league in our area because Joe had struck out one time and didn't get to run the bases. During lunchtime at my elementary school, you got your lunch sooner if your last name was higher up in the alphabet. His last name was Adams and he always got lunch first. However, when we entered 3rd grade they changed the system, so you got lunch dependent on your first name. Since his name was Joe, he was somewhere in the middle. Joe didn't give a damn. He was a very laid back kid for a 3rd grader. He wasn't really hyper like the other kids and he wasn't a crybaby either. Now that I think about it, he was quite mature. In fact, he was happy that he wasn't first anymore, so now he wasn't always done with his lunch first. The first few weeks of 3rd grade were fun. Then somehow I guess Joe let it slip that he was no longer first in the lunch line anymore to his mom. His mom flipped the hell out and legally changed his name to Adam. His name was now legally Adam Adams. Why? Also, he could be first in the lunch line. The only time I ever saw Joe/Adam cry was because of this. He came to school crying the day when he got his name changed, 3rd graders being 3rd graders. Everyone made fun of him for his new ridiculous name, which ended up making him cry even more. I went from 4th 12th grade being homeschooled. Around the 6th grade area my mom thought it was a good idea for my sister, also homeschooled, and I to go to some sort of homeschool event in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Very conservative Christian area. Also where the second KKK was formed. What the hell, it was a day off of sitting around the house and there was some cool stuff at Stone Mountain. So we went, and it was probably one of the strangest experiences of my life. All the kids had this sort of glazed over look on their faces. I quickly found out why. Most of the kids I talked to were on some sort of ADHD medication. That was the saddest part looking back on it. While the few lucky unmedicated ones of us were off at the playground, most of these kids just sat around looking at the ground with their mothers immediately beside them. But anyway, back on track with the story. I eventually found another kid who played soccer, and he seemed pretty normal, or so I thought. So we spent some time kicking the ball around. Both of us seemed pretty content on wasting time, until it was time to go. Then, his mother came along. Cooper. Milkers. His face went bright red, and I was completely perplexed. What the hell are Milkies? His mother promptly strolled up in the exact same outfit as the kid, glared at me, and then produced a bottle, as in a formula bottle, from her butt. I tell the truth, she reached inside the back of her pants, and pulled out this bottle. She then proceeded to say nice warm Milkers for my little boy, at which point I promptly turned around. Found my mom and sister and straight up told them if we weren't leaving I would just wait by the car. Apparently, they had seen some weird crap too and agreed to leave. We then went to Pope's and ate chicken while telling stories of these strange people. I was terrified. Alrighty, I have a few. I worked at Whole Foods, and that is ground zero for lunatic parents. There was a nutritionist and her mom that didn't want anything scanned because of the radiation. One lady was going on and on about how her son was corn-free, egg-free, dairy-free, and soy-free because that's what her chiropractor told her to do. I wanted to apologize to that kid so bad. When I worked at a cooking store, like Williams Sonoma, I had a lady come in with her teenage kids trying to find glass baking dishes because metal is bad for you. I suggested silicone, and she said that was worse, so I suggested parchment paper, but she already used that. I had a hard time holding back the massive smile when I told her that parchment has silicone in it. Every time she would go off on something her kids would just roll their eyes. The family I work for are helicopter parents. The mom turns off all the electricity at night so they do not get radiation while they're sleeping. I'm wondering why the electricity isn't off during the day. I mean, they're exposed to radiation just as much, right? Certain toys and candy are banned because they have dye in them. The mom still breastfeeds her 5-year-old son. Naughty, whips them out all the time, in public, in front of strangers, etc. He calls them Milkies, and he knows that it's not appropriate and is extremely creepy about it. I have so many stories from this family, it's ridiculous. Not helicopter parents, just first-time parents. I was covering for the pediatric receptionist when these two very tired, quite young parents came in with their brand new baby. The baby was asleep in his carrier while mom was checking him in. As this was going on, the little guy fussed a bit in his sleep. Mom and dad flew to this tiny sleeping baby's side with, he started crying again. Maybe it's the carrier? Take him out of it. Maybe he has claustrophobia. I almost peed myself smothering my laughter. Yes, a tiny baby is claustrophobic despite spending months scrunched as a tiny ball in your uterus. Exhausted sleepy parents were some of the best entertainment at that job. I made a really great friend in high school. He and I were as thick as thieves. Early on in the friendship, my parents took us to a movie. I don't remember the movie, but the start of it got delayed by technical difficulties by about 20 minutes. My parents called from their cell to let my friend's mother know, but only got the voicemail. Thinking that would suffice, we all proceeded to have a good time. Fast forward to the end of the movie, my mom turns her cell phone on and discovers her voicemail box is suddenly full. 20 I believe was her limit. All of them were my friend's mother calling pleading for us to return her son, and she would pay any amount we demanded, and that if we called back soon she wouldn't go to the police. She literally had thought we kidnapped him. Suffice to say, when we got him home only 20 minutes later than planned, the conversation was rather awkward. I'm a server, and I had an entire family, 2 parents, 4 kids, all vegetarian soy/dairy wheat/gluten/yeast free. Not an allergy, just preference. I had to straight up pull up a chair and spend 15 minutes talking to them, just trying to take an order. They had steamed vegetables. Mind you, the husband and kids don't utter a word. The mom is flailing around with the allergy book rambling about whatever. Clearly this dad just wanted a cheeseburger. In high school I was friends with this girl we'll call Judy. Judy's mom was really strict/overprotective, and she could never go anywhere with us, and when she did she'd inevitably end up grounded. She could never hang out, and she wasn't allowed to have friends over very often. Once when I was at her house she got grounded for yelling at the dog. This led to a rebellion where Judy just stopped doing anything her mom told her. She started drinking heavily whenever she could, and she also smoked and did whatever pills people had. We always had to babysit her if she came out with us. This went on for a few months, and she met this guy. We'll call him Tom. He was about 25 and the kind of dude that's every parent's worst fear. Judy came from a good upper middle class family. Her dad was a dentist, that sort of thing. Tom was a 25-year-old burnout, and he was on house arrest when Judy met him. It was love at first sight for her, even though we all tried to talk her out of it. She started hanging out at Tom's house anytime she could. She'd skip school to go over there, sneak out of the house at night, that sort of thing. Well, it's no surprise what happened next. Judy got pregnant. She was 8 months along at our high school graduation and married Tom and had the baby shortly thereafter. Moral of the story, don't be a ridiculously strict parent because your child will rebel and bad things will happen. PS. The same exact thing happened to Judy's sisters when they got older. Sad stuff. Edited to update, Judy and Tom stayed married for 10+ years. I don't keep up with her, but from what I've heard she went on to become a hairdresser. Tom stayed out of trouble, and the kid turned out okay. He will be 20 now. Damn, that makes me feel kinda old. Haha. Being overbearing can have some serious effects on a kid. I popped out first. My dad wanted a son, and made me his little tomboy. Camping, fishing, rafting, eating dirt, playing in mud, falling and getting cuts and scrapes. That was my childhood. I never got along with my mom because she wanted to put me in dresses and hair bows and make me act girly. When my little brother was born, my mother sunk her talons into him. She was really overprotective, never letting him get dirty, sanitizing everything he touched, teaching him to be terrified of strangers and all that. Lo and behold, I never get sick. My brother is constantly falling ill, has a phobia of homeless people, and is incredibly shy and nervous when talking to other people. Thanks, Mom.